Recently, I had an email on YouTube asking me, Angela, what do you do about the fear of the blank page? And that was a great question. It was something I've been thinking about quite a bit because I get a lot of feedback from people saying they just love my attitude about watercolor. I find it super encouraging, and I really appreciate that kind of feedback because that's really one of my biggest goals in teaching watercolor and sharing demonstrations and tutorials is to really give an idea of the joy of watercolor, to really give people a sense that I can do this, I can do watercolor. I don't need to feel discouraged or like I have this huge obstacle to overcome before I can be proud of where I'm at in watercolor. I really want everyone who tackles watercolor. It's one thing to be aware that you need to learn, and I think we all are. As an artist, I am my own biggest critic, and I think that's one of the reasons that it can be such a terrifying thing to look at a piece of blank watercolor paper and think, what am I going to do with this sheet of paper, and what if I can't do it? And I've spent many years in that position of feeling like, what if I can't do it? So I've been there and I'm still there. And I think every artist is very much involved in a mental battle. Because, you know, what we see in our minds, it's very hard to translate that into something beautiful on paper. And we very seldom actually get what's in our mind onto paper. So really what I want to teach with watercolor is that willingness to be flexible and to work to collaborate with the pigment. And I think if you have that idea that you have to have an open mind when you start painting, that can be a really good way to kind of be more fluid and flexible with your painting, and just to kind of let the watercolor, the paint itself, lead a little bit and work together to create something beautiful. And I try to start paintings with low expectations, and I think that's one way. If you are really struggling with just getting started in a painting, feeling overwhelmed, there's a few things that you can remember that will help you. Number one would be just to approach every painting as a learning experience. It used to be that I would read an artist tutorial, something to help an artist improve professionally, and it would tell me things like you have to do thumbnail sketches, you need to work out your composition, in a very structured way. And I just could never do that. I always wanted to just start painting, and I felt like there was something wrong about that. And I've realized over the years, it became a lot more freeing to realize that that is how I learn. I am not a structured person that has to sit down and work out the mathematical composition details. And if you are, that is fantastic for you, and I'm sure it is reflected in how you paint. But I think it was very important for me to realize that my way of doing things was okay. It was not always what was recommended, but the important thing was just to keep painting. And over the years, I've found ways to improve my composition without doing thumbnail sketches. Instead of doing a pencil sketch, I might paint the same subject, 5 or 6 or 10 times before I really to get a composition and arrangement I'm happy with. But it's a lot more fun for me to paint it over and over again than it would have been for me to try to sketch it out in pencil in a medium I'm not really that fond of or comfortable with. So it's okay to do things in a way that you enjoy and that pleases you. And you don't have to feel like you're doing something wrong just because you're not doing it the way the experts recommend. Another thing that helps me to be free and encouraged and excited about painting is to remember not to feel guilty about maybe lack of painting time, not using the materials that are even the highest quality. And I've talked about what materials I recommend in other videos. And using good quality materials does help, but if you're limited as to what you have access to, don't let that stop you from painting. Don't let a lack of time cause you to feel like you'll never be a good painter because you just don't have the hours to put into it. I went through a time when my children were small where I painted about 3 paintings a year, so I had very little time to spend painting. And I was amazed when I would pick it up again. Of course, it takes a little while to get that creativity flowing again, but I always felt like, I'd have to regain all this ground that I lost. And I didn't find that was the case. So I really try not to feel guilty if I'm not getting the amount of painting time that I want, if I'm not, I mean, really about anything. I want to come to my, I don't want to come to my painting table burdened down by some feeling of guilt that I need to be doing better. I want to just say, you know what, everything I can give to this is going to just have to be good enough. This is all, I'm going to do my best, and this is all I have to offer at this point. And every painting that I do, whether it turns out to be fantastic and frameable, or whether it gets thrown away, or maybe flipped over to use the blank side for a future painting, every painting I do teaches me something, and I try to find something to love about every painting that I create. The other thing you can do if you're feeling blocked by a blank page is make your page smaller. A big sheet of paper, in our minds, it often feels like a bigger expense, especially when you're using the quality watercolor paper that I recommend. But so going a little bit smaller just means that you have a little bit less to lose. And so sometimes you might just want to have some small sheets of scrap paper that you can kind of warm up with before you start on a bigger painting, or just work on painting smaller paintings until you really feel free to paint with a larger sheet of paper. I do keep in mind that the watercolor paper that I buy, the Arches 300-pound cold press that I like, the 22 by 30 inch sheets retail for about $20 in my area. And really $20, I'm going to cut that piece into at least four sheets of paper, cut it into 4 pieces, and so I can get up to 8 paintings on those four broken down sheets. If I mess up and have to flip it over, I get 8 chances to make a good painting out of a $20 sheet of paper. And so I'm really thinking that's not a lot more than the cost of maybe a fancy coffee in a coffee shop when you really sit down and think about it. And yet every painting that I do, rather than just being a cup of coffee, I'm actually contributing to my own mental health, because I really believe that creativity is a great mental therapy for anybody. And so really that $4 or whatever it is of that you might have wasted, let's say wasted, I don't like that word, but in a painting session, even if you throw that away, you've just invested $4 or $20 in your own mental health. And isn't that worth it? Aren't you worth it? So that's just another thing I try to keep in mind, to give myself that can-do attitude. And the last thing that can keep you from feeling blocked by a blank piece of paper is just to remember that you are the only one that can paint like you. You are the only one who has that vision, has your own unique voice, and so really to strive to be genuine in what you paint, you don't have to copy anybody else. You don't have to be like me. You don't have to be, I laugh because there's so many artists I would like to emulate or be as good as, but we don't have to do that. I want to paint in my own genuine, authentic self, and you should want that too. And that is something that we can all achieve, and hopefully have a lot of fun doing it. So I hope that helps you if you're feeling blocked by a painting, and just keep painting. And remember, it's just a few dollars. It's an investment in your mental health, and every brush stroke is going to make you a better artist, and be that little investment in you, and you're worth it.